Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of the podcast. In this episode, we've got Sam. Sam is an instructor for Kezia Noble. But it's better if you introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I've been an instructor with Kezia for 2 years now. Before that, I worked with students with learning difficulties, and I helped them make the social transition from school to university, which a lot of students with Asperger's syndrome and autism have a lot of problems with. So I've got 4 years experience working with body language, psychology and social skills in general. I've been working privately for the last year and a half. And how did we meet, Alex?
I joined Kezia's course, and we basically had a session together. That session probably was more than an average session because we really had a chat. We found out more about each other's backgrounds and everything. And can I say that we became friends afterwards?
Yeah. And I think it was one of those strange situations because we'd never had a client that was blind before. It was a very unusual thing. I think you probably are the only blind person that has got into this industry. So that's your trademark so far.
Yeah, that's my unique selling point.
Yeah, but I think what really stood out about our session was as soon as we met, I had some material ready for you.
Yeah.
I had some ideas to bring to the table, and we got on very early on. So when we went out, it was very natural, and the process of doing our initial openings was sort of just fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And interesting to see how the girls reacted to it.
What I appreciated about the session is that you really spend time thinking about what I can do and how my game is going to be different compared to yours or compared to an average normal guy.
Yeah.
Like the other coaches before you, they still try to help me and everything, but they really try to use methods that they'll definitely work in a situation where you have a quote-unquote normal student. But you really had the flexibility to create a system or create some lines and methods that would really work when I was gaming. So I appreciated that straight from the beginning, and I think that helped us connect, and then we did all those fantastic interactions.
Yeah.
I was telling you before this podcast that I got my first number on the third day of the course, and on the third day of the course was at night time with you.
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy after I got my first number. To be honest, I've never spoke with the girl because the number was a flake. But just getting the number, it was so out of my reality.
Yeah, and I mean there are guys who don't have any sort of impairment at all, and they really struggle to get to that stage, and they often won't be able to. So I think that for you was a real one of those moments where it's like, I can really take this on. This is something I can do well at. I can break past this what should be a massive barrier, and I can really own it.
I remember after working with you, the night session with Ali, he kind of forced me to approach a woman in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I was very anxious because I haven't done that before, and I haven't done a direct approach before working with Ali. And he said, tonight we're just doing direct approaches, and he just told me an opener, a direct one, went there, got the number in about 2-3 minutes, and I was disappointed because I got just the number. So it really, I was working with you, and it really changed, it really changed my beliefs. That was the main thing. I proved to myself that I can do it.
Yeah, I think the thing about our session was it shows that when you a lot of the process is about not just it's about persistence, of course, and it's about keeping going when everybody else quits, but a lot of it is about just being intelligent as well. It's about being smart about what you're doing. And so I think, that's your coffee.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that that our session really highlighted was there is a way to get the right line that's gonna work with someone like Alex. And I think one example of that was the opening line. So what tended to happen was we would go up to a two-set, we'd go up to a couple of girls, and I'd introduce and you'd say hi, and very quickly they'd notice that you were blind.
Because of my stick.
Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, I would see them sort of looking at you and sort of figuring out what the situation is, and I'd say, yeah, he can't see you, but if you tell him your name, he'll be able to tell you everything about you.
Yo, one thing that I remember, that was a great line. I stopped using it, but that was a great line at that time. You told her that I can't see her, but I can see through her.
And it's a little bit ironic, but it's just like the other one saying, if you tell him your name, he'll be able to tell you everything about you. And the way we thought about that line was like, if she speaks, you have an idea of how tall she is.
Yeah.
Secondly, most girls are brunette, and the ones that are blonde have often dyed their hair. So there's already a few of these cold readings, these assumptions that are it's very likely that they're going to be correct. The third one is you can tell a little bit about what she looks like by the depth of her voice, by the confidence in her voice, maybe the way she looks. So there was all of these little points that you could pick up on just by hearing her name, and that was very effective.
At that point, obviously, I wasn't very experienced with interacting with women. But now, after doing this a lot, like almost every single day, when I hear a voice, in my mind, it just develops a blueprint of that woman.
Yeah.
So I can tell sometimes how tall she is, her weight and everything. And they are shocked when sometimes they think that I can see. But so I just say, wow, your makeup is not right. Oh, how do you know? And everything.
Yeah. I think it was. I think it's really funny because I think the fact that you can't see them means you develop a really heightened sensitivity to their vocal intonation, their accent, the sort of the consistencies that you see. So, a short brunette girl, sort of like this, a girl that maybe has a little bit more of an Essex accent, she might have dyed blonde hair, because a lot of them do. So there are these correlations that you can pick up on, and for me, I might not be so sensitive to them, but because you're missing that sense, the other senses are going to adapt and become stronger.
And one more advantage that I've got is just women, their most insecure factor about themselves is that their looks is everything that they have.
Yeah.
So once they get that validation from me, I think getting validation from me is better than getting validation from what kind of a celebrity or something, because that guy can see. But once they get my validation, my approval and everything, they see, so my personality matches my looks. At least that's what they think.
It's very true. It's very powerful, actually. If you get it right, if you genuinely challenge them when you disagree with them, and you give them that approval and you give them that compliment, when they do something that you find uniquely attractive, they are going to value that more, because they know that you don't have the bias of looking at them superficially and then saying, I like your personality, but really that's just based on the way they look. It's much more genuine from you when you challenge them and when you compliment.
Sometimes it's not, to be honest, sometimes it's not. Like, us guys were very based on looks. Like, for us, looks is the most important thing. But just because I'm blind, I've got this huge advantage. So that's why qualification, it works better for me than other guy.
Yeah, well, I think looks are the most important thing at the start. But I think, as you progress through this sort of process, you find that after a while it becomes very boring. to find a lot of good-looking people and find out that none of them have developed their personality because maybe they haven't felt the need to because their looks have got them through until now. You know, a lot of girls, they tell you, I'm a model, and they expect you to be throwing roses at their feet. But instead, you can come out with a line, something like, oh, okay.
Actually, one thing that I remember from the 7-day course, I was with Daniel in Aqua at night time. Was the 5th day of the course, and then you came and introduced me to two models.
Yeah. I brought a couple of wingles up.
Yeah. And you introduced them to me and everything. You said that we're business partners or something, and we work on products and together. And they started asking me questions and everything. But after a while, I just ignored them and I started talking with you and Daniel. And after they were chasing me, they were asking me questions and everything, just because I wasn't giving them that validation.
Yeah.
Like when they said, oh, I'm a model, I said, okay, and then I started talking with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the perfect one really for you because, as we were saying before, you really don't have anything to go by. They say they're a model, that doesn't mean anything to you, you know? You can't see that, so they're like, oh shit, well I need to show them something else then. I need to, they're going to want to win you over and prove that they've got that attitude
ego
to go with the looks.
Yeah. At that point, I didn't realize what I did. It was a micro thing at that time.
Yeah.
But I realized that a few months ago when I checked the report of that night.
Yeah.
Actually, that's why they chased me.
Yeah, well, it was because you actually showed. If you just ignored them from the start and you hadn't shown them that you are a normal guy and you have some good conversation, then they wouldn't have been chasing you. But it's the fact that you showed them that you were a communicator, that you were a sociable guy, and that you were an unusual case of a blind person. And so after you demonstrated that you did have that social tuning to a certain extent, then when you turned off your interest, that's what really provoked them to be more interested in you and what turns you on and what flicks your switches in a way.
Yeah. Although everything that we said so far is great, content is great.
Yeah.
But let's make it practical for the guys.
Sure.
Let's not just spend the whole podcast telling guys about my successes and everything. One thing that I appreciated about you is the fact that you build some comfort with me before we actually start the session. So, what do you think? Like, do you have a method or something that you use with students before you actually start the session?
Yeah, so my basic process...
If you can share it.
Yeah, of course. My basic process when I'm coaching anyone is you have to get your mindset right before you start doing this. Because a real problem that a lot of guys have is they have, like we were talking about before, they have this, they can switch it on and then switch it off. They can go into pick-up mode, and then but then when they go home, they're still the timid, maybe nervous guy, and they're not going to talk to anyone on that journey home. Whereas I think in my case, I see it like whenever I leave the house in the morning, I know that I'm open to communication. So when I'm walking on the commute to work, when I'm going to buy my groceries, wherever I'm going anywhere, I'm always scanning, I'm always looking around me, and I'm always thinking, you never know where that person's going to come from, where the girl you really like is going to be. So be excited about every opportunity you have to leave the house. So really, I again, make it practical. There's a 3-step process. The first one is curiosity. And what I mean by curiosity is having that expressive energy from the start. So it's about being really genuinely curious about everything around you. Looking at people in the eye, looking at the buildings, looking at the weather, looking at the trees you walk past, and engaging with your environment. Because guys can get stuck in their head, and that's a real problem, isn't it? As you know. When you get lost in thought, you lose that sense of focus on the other person.
This was a major sticking point for me. As you probably noticed on the 7-day course, I was very, very logical.
Yeah.
So I had to do improv exercises. I had to do a lot of stuff to get out of my head.
Yeah.
And be more present in the current moment.
Yeah. So the next step was engagement. So it's curiosity 1, engagement 2. And engagement is fully expressive. So what it means is the direction of your focus. So if you are talking to a girl, she has your full attention. Every time you get a thought that is something like, what shall I say now? What shall I do? Does she like me? This internal monologue is self-focused. And as long as your focus is on yourself, then it's not on her. You can't be simultaneously focused on you and her. So what you have to do, in practical terms, is change your internal monologue and literally think of it like a direct translation from what do I do now to what can I find out about her. Instead of how am I feeling about this, how is she feeling? And as soon as she becomes the object of your focus, you stop worrying about what to say, you stop worrying about what you're doing, and you just cherish the time you're spending with this person. And that's a really, really powerful exercise. So to translate that internal monologue from me to all that matters right now is this girl.
Yeah, and that also reduces your approach anxiety. Because when you go there and have, as you said, curiosity and engagement, you look at her and say, she's hot, but London is full of hot women. So what else she has apart from
exactly
her body?
That's one side. So it's looking for what it is that you really find attractive about her character. What character traits is she expressing through her body language, through her facial expressions, through the words she uses. But the other side of it is the real complexity of giving a good compliment. Because as you know, a lot of guys, their typical compliment is, you look really nice today, you have nice hair, I like this coat. Just a compliment where all that girl has to do is turn her head 30 degrees and she sees 10 other women with the same hair, the same coat. So that compliment loses its value. But when you're really engaged with her, when all of your focus is on her, you can find things about her that aren't visible to other people. So you notice that when she thinks about something, maybe her eyes go down and to the left. She looks down and to the left. And this indicates that she uses her body to understand information. She's a kinesthetic learner, that she is a deep thinker, and that can influence sort of words you use with her and the way you understand her. You know that she's going to respond more to touch and to feeling than to visual or audible cues.
Yeah, I think that women, they get turned off when a guy has that dildo mentality. He just is willing to fuck everything.
Oh yeah.
And once they see that you're a guy who actually pays attention to herself, who she realizes that for you, in your eyes, she's not just a woman with 2 boobs, 1 ass, and a few holes. So that really makes impact, and for her, it's just finally a guy that gets it.
That's it. It's about being the guy that gets it. And I mean, the compliments that you can come up with, you can say to her, instead of saying, you look really nice, you can say something like, you have this really funny thing where whenever you're deep in thought, you look down and to the left. I've never seen that before. It's very intriguing.
Oh, so you mean like giving not generic compliment, like personalized compliment, something that you cannot just go on the street and tell 10 girls in a few minutes.
Yeah, and giving her something that maybe either she may know it about herself, she may not, but ultimately you're trying to make the other person feel special. You want this interaction to be unique, for it to be spontaneous. So when you give her a compliment that doesn't apply to any other girl there, it's going to have a lot more power than a generic compliment.
Yeah.
But this all comes from that engagement, which is the second point. Just briefly, I'll say the third one is to slow everything down. And I'm sure I've got a couple of thoughts on that before I go into it.
Yeah. About engagement?
No, about slowing everything down. So the third step.
Slowing everything down, especially with the girl, it really shows her that you're not this guy that, she thinks, if I don't stop this guy now, he's going to fuck me, or something. So Also, when you slow everything down, you let that sexual tension build, and when you let the sexual tension build, you really show her that you're not desperate. You've got options. You're not needy about this, and you have that abundance. And it's really attractive because an alpha guy, when he first sees a woman, he won't prioritize the woman compared to this other female friends or other girlfriends that he has.
Yeah.
And she works for that, which is investment, and investment is the best way to build attraction, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it works sort of both ways. It's when you're inside, but it's also before. So when you're maybe walking up, a lot of us, a lot of people tend to walk very fast. They tend to speak very fast, and they tend to think very fast, and you don't give yourself time to come up with the things you want to say and to really look at who you're talking to and appreciate her, because the speed of your thoughts is too much. Your brain is ticking too fast. So to slow just one aspect down, whether that's your walking or the pace of your speech, it has this knock-on effect where everything speeds down in correlation with it, and you find yourself much more calm, grounded, and in a better position to have an engaging conversation. Just for the record, I'll just show. We're in the Kensington Harbour Club right now. It is it's a new one. There's one in Notting Hill, there's one in Chelsea, and we just signed up to this one, and it's very nice. So yeah, that's the sort of process that I'll go through with all my clients before we get started with the practical side.
What I like about the system is that this can be applied to girls, guys, and every other human being.
Yeah.
Apart from the sexual tension and everything, it can be applied to any area of life. So that's what I think it's really good about your game, is that you're not just a dating coach, you're a social coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's all these labels thrown around, particularly, in this industry. You've got on one side, you've got the sort of PUA thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got, a dating coach, which is specifically that. And then you sort of realise the longer you work in an industry like this, that all of these skills apply more broadly than just, dating and just pickup. It bleeds into social skills in general, and really to be effective at teaching and learning, you have to understand it from the perspective of this is just socializing at its core.
So, as you're a social coach, you don't consider yourself a pickup artist or a dating coach. Can you give guys some examples where you can use game in other areas of life, not just women? So, I don't know, business, or can you give guys examples of your life where you use game?
Yeah. Okay. So I think probably the simplest and most effective hack, like social hack, that I can think of is to sort of obey the science of embodied cognition. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the idea, but it's basically that just like if you're feeling happy, your body language will reflect that. The reverse is also true.
Yeah, it's just, you mean about postural echo and about the the mirror neurons.
Yeah. So for me, the easiest social hack you can do is to lower the bar that you set for your sense of humor. So if you're one of these people that you don't laugh much, if you have a very strict sense of humor, and you're quite tight on what you find funny and don't find funny, then you're going to struggle to be a charismatic individual. So I think the quickest hack you can do is to allow yourself to find everything funny. If you can walk into a room and just see a picture on the wall and burst out laughing at it, or hear someone's voice and just immediately be taken aback by it and find that really funny, people are going to be drawn to you because they see that you've got this easy manner and this expressive energy about you. People who are very strict on their sense of humor, and it takes a lot to make them laugh, they don't make people feel good because they're not laughing at them. And a lot of it's based on ego. If you can make someone feel good about themselves, then that person's going to want to spend more time around you, so they get that feeling more often. So smile more and lower your bar for what you find funny.
Yeah. So one tip that I think is great. Let's you approach a woman or a group of women, and your objective is to find something very amusing about those women or about the interaction in general. And if you can make yourself laugh in 30 seconds, that's what it sets the pace of the interaction.
Yeah.
She'll say something funny, then you can respond to that. And it's just that battle back and forth. That's what, are my favorite interactions.
Yeah.
When you get, before the game, I used to be scared by, let's say, bitchy women.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like them because it really challenges you. And when you get mentally challenged, you really give yourself the opportunity to think of new answers and improve your self-discovery journey.
It's absolutely that. It's if you can make someone laugh in the first 30 seconds, or if you can make yourself laugh almost immediately, then the other person's going to start to feel good around you. It's contagious. They're going to mirror that smile. They're going to mirror that laugh, and they're going to start to really open up to you. I think we're going to finish the first half of the podcast there. We'll grab a drink, and then we can tackle the second half in a second. So we'll see you in a little bit, guys.
So we are back. We spoke about the congruency thing, and I think that was very valuable. But let's make it more practical now. And if you can tell guys about how was you before game, and how did that had an impact on your life? Like, was you average with women, or was below average? Was you a hard case?
Never I was never sort of antisocial. It was never the case that I was bad with people, or very bad with people. It was more the case that I flew under the radar. I wasn't really noticed, and I didn't have enormously high self-esteem. I was just sort of in the middle, flying straight down the middle. And I think what happens with getting into this industry and this arena was that you get sold a lot of misinformation and exaggerated ideas and concepts, marketing schemes essentially. I think it's very easy for someone going in to get wrapped up in these ideas and these grand theories and this celebrity feeling of the whole thing. So I think what happened with me is I kept bouncing from side to side. So I read about the mystery method, and I wanted to understand all of that from a psychological perspective. And then I found that after sort of a year, I just totally hated it, and I rejected it because it felt weird and manipulative. So I went over to the other side. I was like, this is all about just being natural and just being yourself. You don't need to learn anything. Just be yourself. And then I got annoyed at that because I knew that you can learn everything. Every skill is learnable. So there must be a skill here. There must be information you can learn. So I went back to the other side. And you see, there was this constant dichotomy between bouncing from natural to theory to natural. And I think the biggest, if I was going to give a shortcut to the guys out there that are looking to learn this, it's that you have to remember that it's never one of the extremes. It's always in the middle. There's a balance here. So there are things you can learn, but you have to take everything with a pinch of salt and understand that a lot of it is about just putting yourself out there. So if you look at yourself as, what can I learn from psychology? What can I learn from evolutionary biology? What experiences can I read about that are going to inform me? But then also say the main part of this is putting yourself out there and doing it for yourself and meeting more people and challenging yourself. There's a balance. Always recognize that balance.
So, if you think that it's extremely important not to fall in one of the categories where you become self-obsessed with pickup.
Yeah.
But not like to completely reject the idea of pickup.
Yes, it's to recognize that a lot of it is based in science, and ultimately that in the midst of a lot of the societal stuff that's going on today, like feminism, which from a political perspective is great, but in the extreme cases it tends to overlook the fact that there are basic neurological differences between men and women. So it's to recognise that there's science, there's hard science and there's empirical evidence, but not to get wrapped up in someone else's life, not to look at that guy you admire and worship him and see him as a celebrity. To recognise that your journey will be completely separate, and the best thing you can do is to realise that you are inherently equal to him. You are no better and no worse than him, and your own style will come out of working on yourself and not studying someone else's style too much.
Yeah, but how did you manage to find the balance? Because most people don't find the balance. They fall in one of those two categories.
Yeah.
So what was the moment that what is your revelation that changed?
I think it came to me because out of just pure frustration of bouncing from side to side, because I'm very extreme personality in the way I live my life. I have very productive periods followed by a slump where I have low motivation or low energy. It's very, very extreme, and that's just my personality type. So I would go very much, don't let, this is all a lie, this is all false, there's nothing to learn. Yeah. And then I'd go to the other side and be like, anyone that says they're a natural is lying. They're not going to get, the most amazing women. They're going to be missing something. And I think it was just out of pure frustration of living for so long in these extreme areas that I was like, it can only be in the middle. It's the only way. And then your mind sort of opens up to this idea of trial and error. So you say a line, you enjoy saying it, and it gets a good response. So you think, well, I'm going to use that again. I created that, I'm going to use it again. And you use it again, and you get that good response. And so you let that become part of your repertoire, part of what you know. And you try something else, and it doesn't stick, or it doesn't taste right coming from you. So you discard it. And after a while, you build up your own style and your own sort of encyclopedia of vocal inflections, of body language cues, of lines, of nuances, of escalation techniques, things that you enjoy doing, and the person who you're doing them with enjoys it as well. And that is a natural. And people think that there's a natural and a guy that learns it, but really a natural is just a person that was exposed to these experiences when they were young, when they were much more like a sponge soaking up this information. And as you get older, it becomes more difficult to really learn and embody some of these ideas. So recognize that there's a middle ground, experiment, amuse yourself with what you're doing, and take what works and discard the rest.
Yeah,
that would be my advice.
But when it comes to technical part,
yeah.
How would you describe your game since you found the balance?
Okay, yeah, it's changed a lot. I've gone through a lot of processes that have worked very effectively to get me to where I am, different 5-step processes, and I still teach some of this information, but really where I'm at this stage in my career and in my own progression is there's 2 things that not that I'm trying to do, but that I find that I do. And the first one is I'm trying to fall in love with every girl I talk to. And by that I don't mean head over heels, let's get married. I mean, I want to feel that feeling where you feel just truly affectionate towards that person, where you pick up on some characteristic about them that is absolutely unique, and you genuinely and sincerely appreciate it in the moment. If you can fall in love in every interaction, just feel that great feeling, then she will feel the same thing back to you. She will feel really special because Whereas you're not the guy that just tells her she has nice hair. You actually find something unique about her. So the first thing I think I do is that I look to fall in love with everyone I meet. And the second thing is that I'm always pushing my own boundaries. So the idea here is that instead of asking permission to do something and then waiting for a response, being in that sort of reactive frame, I act first and then apologize later. And this is the same with business and with social skills. If I have an urge to look behind her and check out her ass, that's exactly what I'll do. And then if she says, "What are you doing?" I'll say, "I'm sorry, you have a well-formed ass. I couldn't help myself. I'm a human being, I have instincts." And she'll start to see the funny side of it, that you're sort of this childish guy who can't really control his impulses, but also you're very free with your body language and you're not afraid to do this. But you can apologize and recognize that you've acted a little bit out of key. So those two factors, I'd say, are the two things that I do.
I call this the mature child frame.
Okay.
Like when you are acting like a child, but you can have a adult conversation if necessary.
Yeah.
But that takes calibration. So for a beginner who is having approach anxiety, let's say, calibration is not the most effective method that he can internalize. So what do you think about calibration and beginning of someone's learning curve? How important is that?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of the time calibration. I think in my case, learning this because I was okay with people, but very bad with attraction. So I just wasn't able to have that sort of romantic attraction and build tension in an interaction. So I think for a beginner, the hack that you've got there is to experiment, is to push your own boundaries. So if you're thinking, I could either do this thing or I could stay safe and not do it, always just try it. Because if you can learn to apologize, that's the key thing. If you can learn to effectively recognize that you've overstepped your mark and say, look, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. I find it very hard to control my impulses sometimes. And you adopt that playful frame where you are apologizing and you are sincere, but also it's still loaded with that affection that you felt in the original case. She starts to feel very relaxed around you. So push your own boundaries. Go before you're ready. Act first, apologize later if you need to, and learn to apologize effectively. I think going back to the frame that you were discussing, the mature child, I think for me, I completely understand what you're saying. It's that sense that you're a three-dimensional person.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of guys have that very playful, sexual frame. But then the girl thinks, that's all well and good, but can I have a conversation with this guy, or is he going to crumble when anything gets a bit deeper? And some guys have that really interesting, fascinating depth to them, but then she's like, I just want some fun. I just want to feel free and have fun now, and that guy can't provide it. So it's about looking at them like they have this emotional core. And instead of just being deep, you want to be a bit of depth, and then excitement, and then sexual tension, and then maybe a bit of fear. And you want to provoke a whole array of emotions so that it feels like an immersive experience. It's like that movie that spikes everything, rather than just being laugh after laugh or sadness after sadness.
Yeah.
You can hit every emotional trigger point.
I really think that every information is very valuable, and I'm sure there will be guys who will definitely find this useful, and as long as they are applying this, because there are a lot of guys who read and listen to material but they don't apply it. So if someone wants to go out, implement what we discussed in this podcast, can you give them, let's say, some missions or something?
Yeah, the first thing, so the idea of push and pull, which is complementing and challenging, that's usually sort of mid game. So that's after you've established the conversation and you are in conversation with the person. I would say as a challenge, if you want to start implementing this stuff immediately, is to skip straight to push-pull. And by that I mean learn how to compliment effectively and learn how to challenge effectively. So again, making this practical, what are some examples of that? Compliment the nuances. Instead of telling her she looks nice or she has nice hair, look for something that's genuinely unique about her. A really easy way to do this is a movie reference or a book reference. If she's wearing a red dress and she's amongst people that are all wearing black, blue or grey, maybe you're on a roof terrace at night, you can come up to her and say, are they filming for Sin City 3? Where is the camera crew? I can't see them. Are they hiding? And she will understand this reference, and she will notice that she is the only person dressed like this, that looks like this, and that you as a guy are intelligent enough to find a film reference, pick it out of nowhere, and apply it to her. So this is going to make her want to flirt back with you. So she might say something like, oh, well, I suppose in that case it makes you Kevin, who's the cannibal in the film. And then, now you've got this flirtatious rapport, and you can say, yeah, don't worry, I'm not hungry, I just ate. And she says something like, oh, I was quaking in my boots. And this is a very natural way for a conversation to unfold. And that's actually an example of one. So that all came from an intelligent opener, from an intelligent compliment and opener. So start really looking at them and seeing what does she look like? What can I pick up on that is genuinely specific about her? The other side of that is the challenges. It may seem a little strange, but sometimes girls go for the bad boy type. Guys think it's because they're nasty. It's not because they're nasty, it's because a bad boy demonstrates that they are okay with conflict. Yeah? This means that if for whatever reason this girl finds herself in trouble, she knows that bad boy character is going to be able to step in and deal with the conflict. Whereas the nice guy stereotype is so afraid of conflict that she can never feel fully safe around him because he doesn't have that protective instinct. So don't fall into the trap of thinking you need to be a bad person in order to be attractive. You just have to be okay with conflict. How do you demonstrate that you're okay with conflict? You challenge her on something. So a really easy example is if a girl is wearing a lot of colours and she generally gives off the impression of being a creative person, and you say, I figure you are a stylist, are you in fashion? Judging by the way you dress, I figure that. And she says, no, I'm a programmer. Most guys say, oh, okay, do you like it? No, don't say that. Say, I don't believe you. Like, you have such creative energy about you. How do you spend like 8 hours a day behind a computer screen when you have so much creativity? You must have some sort of creative outlet. It's kind of crazy. And you challenge her on it. Say, what? Like, even something as critical as that. Why do you do the job you do when my instinct is telling me that you should be doing something else? Yeah? It's not going to offend her. It's going to make her think. She's going to be like, you are the person that has the awareness to see the creativity in her that she hasn't told you anything about. So work on how to compliment, find specific things, experiment, be adventurous with it, be risky with it, and challenge. If she tells you something that doesn't seem quite right, explore it. If she says an opinion, like says, oh, it's just another sexist film. I had a girl recently that called a film a sexist film. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? That it's got more men in? Well, yeah, it's a gangster film. It's a Korean gangster film. Is that film naturally going to require more male actors than female actors? And on the other hand, you have films like Sin City, that is about women that run a city, powerful women that run a city. So yes, maybe there should be more women in the film industry, but you can't say a film is sexist for having more male characters when that's what the script requires. And that's going to make her think about her views and whether that was an appropriate comment or whether it was just a soundbite that she'd heard in the media that she was repeating. So think critically and work on your compliments and your challenges.
So all it comes all this comes to just breaking her patterns and doing things that she doesn't expect. Like these are great for the middle part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Also, great ways of breaking pattern, let's say straight from the beginning, is like reframing the interaction in a situational way. So, an example would be you find a woman who is standing on her own. Some people will assume that she is waiting for someone or something. You can just assume that she's waiting. No, she's just standing there because she was dumped by her boyfriend or something.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Or let's say you see two women with their phones in their hand.
Yeah.
Like someone said, oh, they're on Facebook, but I can assume that they were texting each other because they were bored or something.
Yeah.
So always having the playfulness and creativeness about you is just it just is something that is better than the everyday life of a usual human being.
Yeah. But that is self-amusement, though. That is looking at the situation and saying, regardless of the outcome of what I'm about to do, I'm going to enjoy doing this. This is going to be fun for me. And so, if we look at that first example, you said there's a woman standing by herself, and maybe she's on her phone, maybe she's looking at a map. How would you approach her? Would you go up and say, "Hi, excuse me, I just thought you looked really nice today," or would you say something like, "Hello, you look equal parts lost and attractive.
Yeah.
How can I help you?" This is gonna make her feel it's an unusual thing to say. She will have to think about it. It's good use of language. It will make you stand out. On the other hand, you could go up and say something like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm sure he'll be here in 10 minutes. Everything's gonna be okay. I can be your agony aunt. You can cry on my shoulder if not." So you can assume that she's been stood up by a Tinder date or by a boyfriend or something. Any of these responses show that critical awareness and that intuition that separates you from a guy that just gives that generic compliment.
Okay, so we covered opening stage, comfort building and everything. But how would you close an interaction? For a beginner, what advice would you give for a beginner?
Okay, this is an area of my teaching that's actually changed in the last 4 months. So I'm glad you asked the question. It's just a coffee. So in terms of closing, traditionally it is well, I have to go find my friend now. It's been nice talking to you. Can I get your number? But recently I've sort of been really thinking about how the words you say affects the way someone's thinking. So words like "let's go on a date" or "can I get your number," these are actually trigger words which are going to make the girl feel like everything is mundane and grounded in reality. So as opposed to that, saying "can I get your number for a date," you could say, "You know what, I wasn't expecting this, but I've actually really enjoyed getting to know you. You're pretty interesting. I'd like to see you. I'm going to take you on an adventure next week."
So you've got to make it, let's say, strategically spontaneous.
Yes. Yeah, in a sense it is that. But it's said with sincerity, because really, it's the easy option to say, "Can I get your number? Let's go on a date." Really, have you enjoyed the interaction? If you have, is it not more powerful to say, I didn't expect to enjoy this as much as I have. I'd like to see you again."
Yeah, so it shows that you are not just willing to get any number.
Yeah, it stands out. It shows that it's a unique and specific interaction. But as you said, there is that. I mean, we're talking about it, so we are strategizing this. So in a sense, it is strategically spontaneous. That's your term. You can copyright that one. I won't use it again.
You can have it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. But in terms of closing, actually, going a little bit deeper into it, with all of my new students now, I tell them that the best way to learn how to close an interaction is not to get the number until she's agreed to see you again. And this is very powerful. So let's say if you and I are in an interaction, instead of just closing, getting the number and then hoping for the best, what I do now is I find out information about her content. So where she lives, where she works, who she lives with, what she likes to do. And so I use this information to inform the closing process. So I will say, "Hey, I have to go now, but I've actually really enjoyed getting to know you. I'd really like to see you again. You said you work in fashion, so I figure you're pretty busy most weekdays. I've got meetings all week, but I think I've got some time on Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning. Let's go on an adventure on Sunday. I'll take you somewhere cool. And then I give you the opportunity to say yes or to hesitate. Rarely they'll say no if you've got to that stage. And if you say yes, then I give you my phone. I say, okay, cool, you put it in. And I haven't even mentioned the word number. But if she hesitates, I say, well, you don't have to. It's only if you want to. But I think we'd have fun together. And again, you give her a chance to respond. Sorry, I'll let you talk about that. If she says yes at any point, she's given you verbal agreement that she now wants to see you. And so that's the direction she's going to go in. And in order not to see you, she has to change her decision-making process. She has to deviate from that course because she's now set along the course of seeing you. So getting that verbal agreement of, yes, I would like to see you then, on that time, in that place, is going to massively reduce the likelihood that she'll flake on the day.
Yeah, like one question to find out if that number will be flaky or if you really manage to build enough impact that I found useful is asking her before the number, how busy are you next week? And if she says, oh, I'm busy all week, it means that you'll have a hard time getting that woman to a date or something. Because if she is really into you and if she's really interested, she has 7 days. Out of the 7 days, I'm sure she will find a few hours where she can go grab a drink with you. So ask her how busy is she in the next week. And if she says, oh, I'm busy all week, but if she is still talking to you, build more comfort, give her more information into your personality, and then try and close.
Yeah. If she says busy all week, and you can see that as sort of like that's. I mean, it's not a great sign if she says she's busy all week. But I mean, again, a lot of this is based on how you respond to these things. So if you say, "Oh, okay, anyway, it was nice to meet you," then you sort of fell. And if she says that, you can say something like, "Okay, cool, let's be busy together on Thursday." No, I'm busy too. Let's be busy together on Thursday. You're saying you're reinterpreting what she's saying as, oh, she's just got a lot of things on, but we can still see each other. So a lot of this is about the conviction that you have in yourself, and are you able to ignore that potential indicator of disinterest because you don't believe that she wouldn't want to see you, or at least that's what the energy you're giving off. It's either intelligent or it's very confident. So either way, it's a winning remedy. Ali once told me that his mind frame is that a girl loves him, but she doesn't know it yet. Shout out to Ali, by the way.
Yeah. So that's a great thing. When a girl loves me, but she doesn't know it yet. So your mission is to find out about that.
Yeah, it's smart. There's a few different takes on that as well. One is to imagine that you and this girl that you're about to approach are going to be in an amazing relationship in 1 year's time. So it's just a case of you taking that inevitable first step towards getting in that relationship. But there's a lot of power to imagining that positive outcome. So saying, oh, there's my future girlfriend. How will our relationship start? Because I know we're going to be together in a year. I wonder how it starts. And you have this sort of knowing mindset to you where everything is just like fine because you know it's going to work. And that can be a really powerful experiment to sort of play with.
Yeah. So this is great for beginners. But let's just for a few minutes because we've got to end this. We're both busy in a few minutes. I think for an advanced guy, once I'm losing my voice. Once an advanced guy masters this cold approach, pickup, or however you want to call it, I think the next step is to build a social circle. And both of us now we are doing promoting work and everything. So if you can share some social circle insights and tips and practical steps on how guys can apply this and build their social circle by using cold approach.
Well, it's sort of using it, and it's sort of it's a little bit different. The best advice I would give is a lot of guys, most of you probably won't have time to go out all the time and build these networks and do all this. So be judicious with how you delegate your time. By that I mean, if you're going to go for a coffee or to read a book in a cafe, don't go to the desolate Starbucks where there are just grannies and children there. Instead, go to a Joe and the Juice, which is, for anyone that's not in London, it's a popular sandwich coffee bar that feels very youthful, and it's usually full of very attractive young professionals. So be judicious with how you delegate your time and where you choose to spend that time. Instead of going to a plethora of different cafes, a big variety, find one that you like and stick to it. Get to know the bar staff in there. Get to know the locals, the regulars that go there. Because you will walk into this environment and immediately have social proof. You're going to be shaking hands, you're going to know your favourite spot, you're going to know some of the people there, and generally other people are going to recognise that you're bringing a certain energy to the environment, and that's going to be very attractive. That social proof, that pre-selection is going to make people attracted to you. So then you can just have a look around the environment. Anyone you like the look of, just give them a nod. Make eye contact. You're the person with the value in that situation. So get to know a few environments. This doesn't just apply to coffee bars or sandwich bars. This is the same with nightclubs. Instead of going to Clapham Junction to Adventure Bar, find a high-end club where you can get to know the person on the door, maybe get queue jump, get to know the locals in there, the regulars, and generally bring an energy that you could be the manager or you could be a partner in this place. People shouldn't know why you have this relationship with the venue that you do. That element of mystery is going to be very attractive to them.
You build instant attraction once you are, let's say, in the Box, the club in Soho, or Project London, or other high-end clubs. Just because you are there, people assume that you are someone.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do a lot of game, like.
Sorry, just to chip in that, more than just assuming that you're someone important, they actually see you socializing. And a girl that maybe you've cold approached, she doesn't know what you're like as a friend, as a sociable person. But if she's seen you walk into a club and say, "Hey man, how you doing?" Give a kiss on the cheek to one girl, pick up another one and spin her around a bit and put her down, then they're going to immediately see that you are an expressive person, you are charismatic, and you've formed all these relationships. So that's going to give them a lot to work with about who you are right from the start.
People assume that a high-end nightclub, it will be more difficult, but personally I haven't been to Tiger, but all the guys that went there, they said that they get a lot of blowouts when they get but when they go to high-end nightclub, everyone is friendly there, and
particularly when there's tables that a particular promoter has brought people into a table, the environment adopts more the energy of a house party rather than a club, where to be on that table, you are there on the premise that everyone knows the same people because the same promoter has brought the same people. So it's not in anyone's interest to be rude to you there. So if you say hello to one of the girls, where usually you feel like you would need a strong opener, if you now just say hello, she isn't going to respond badly, because what if you are one of the promoters on that table? What if you are a manager of the club or a mutual friend?
Or the guy that's buying the bottles.
Exactly. So people generally treat you with respect when you're in these high-end environments, because they have to think about who you are in relation to that place.
Okay, so last thing, how do you approach a promoter to get on the guest list?
Well, firstly, it's important to realize that it's in a promoter's interest to make himself seem like it's a privilege to be on his guest list, okay? That's what promoters do. They sell their guest list like, you are privileged if you come on my guest list. The reality of the matter is that promoter's getting paid for you to come along with them. So I think don't get sucked in by the feeling that you're in a very VIP. This is against my interest to tell you this, but don't get sucked into the frame that you're a VIP because you're on a promoter's guest list. Recognize that there's more in it for him than you. But if you can bring a few girlfriends, they don't have to be romantic partners, they can just be friends of yours. If you can bring them along to this table, that promoter is going to start to see you as a valuable tool for him, and he's going to start introducing you to his networks and his friends. So I think the best way to approach these clubs is to immediately start bringing value, even if that value is your sister or your cousin or a few of your old girlfriends. If you can just bring them along to that venue and introduce them maybe even to some of the guys, then people are going to start to see you as a social orchestrator.
Yeah, so remember, guys, that women are the most important currency in a nightclub, because everyone, like every rich guy, is just spending money to get the women. Like guys are getting there because they see a model standing on the line. So women are very important in nightclubs. So if you can provide a group of women to a promoter, that promoter will love you, and I think that's the best way to get on the guest list. So as I said, we've got to end the podcast. Where if guys want to find out more information about you, or if guys want private coaching from you, where they can find you?
Currently, the best option is my Facebook page, which is Sam Overton, and there will be a profile picture of me with Kezia Noble, that is. And if you contact me privately on there, I will get back to you. I'm always offering free content on there, free tips and experiences from my coaching and from my life. And my YouTube channel is going to come into effect in the next couple of months, once I've got a surplus of content for that.
Yeah. Also, you can just contact me and I can get in touch with Sam.
Sure. And the same.
And me and Sam, we was talking about the podcast. We are going to do a YouTube video where he will prove to other guys how important are looks. So if you want to talk about that, and then we really have to end the podcast. Yeah,
so we're going to do a little video because a lot of clients are very concerned with the way they look genetically. And they think it makes a big impact. So we're going to team up and do a video where I show you what it's like when I go in with very bad communication and social skills, maybe even looking alright, and the difference between no game but being attractive looking and good game. And I'm going to wear some horrible, ugly clothes for that one to show that it's more important about your game than your looks or your style. So we're gonna do that in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Aside from that, guys, thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you on the next one.